Hey everybody, I'm Doug, that's Connor, and this is the Bethel School District Presents podcast, and this week we're on location at Cougar Mountain Middle School, and Connor, our audio recording skills are seriously in question today because our guest is a former member of the UK's Audio Engineering Society. That's right, today our students are lucky enough to have her as their orchestra teacher. Shannon Boland, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So Shannon, we've got a whole bunch of questions for you, but before we get into all that, first let's talk about your connection to the UK. Because I understand you attended both Richmond University in London as well as the Glasgow School of Art in Scotland. So how did these opportunities come to you, and what did you learn while you're there? And as a side note, did you have any haggis in Glasgow?
Oh, of course I had haggis in Glasgow. I've also had a vegetarian haggis. I'm a fan of both. When I was getting my undergrad in music education, I went to a school in Ohio called Bowling Green State University. And from there, I was able to do a study abroad program to London at Richmond University, where I took a video production course. And during my time there, I met completely brand new people. I was there kind of by myself, and a friend I had never met. And I went to Edinburgh in Scotland for the weekend, and we just took a bus and we went up there. It was the most magical experience of my life. I could not believe that a place like that truly existed beyond the books I was reading. And so from that moment, I knew I wanted to pursue a graduate degree. And I knew I wanted to study in the UK. And so I found a program called Sound for the Moving Image through the Glasgow School of Art. And my background is in music education, not in art. And so I wasn't sure if I was even going to make it, but I applied anyway just to see if I would at least get an interview. And next thing I knew, they were interviewing me, and I was offered a position there.
That's amazing. And I have been to Scotland. I love Glasgow, and Edinburgh is magical. It looks like you're in Harry Potter or something, that castle on the hill. So if you could go back to either place, London or Glasgow, for a vacation, which would it be and why?
I would easily say Glasgow, because in Glasgow, they have a city motto that is, people make Glasgow. And that's 100% true. The Glaswegians and Scottish people in general are so friendly and quick-witted, and they have such pride in their city. I was actually there during the referendum, which was a really amazing opportunity to be, to see a little glimpse of history being made. And I think most people don't fully understand the history of the UK and how it works with all the different countries in there, with Scotland and Ireland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and England. And so it was really incredible to see the different perspectives, especially during that time. But the whole city itself has such a creative atmosphere, and it's just an extremely artsy city, for sure.
I love it. Great answer. And let's get back to talking about orchestra. Now, personally, I actually started playing the violin in the 4th grade and played through 12th grade. You've got me beat. The internet claims that you started playing violin at the age of 4. So first off, is Google correct? And follow-up question, seriously, you started playing at 4?
Yes, I did start when I was 4. But actually, there are many people who start violin even when they're the age of 3. There's a famous pedagogue named Dr. Shinichi Suzuki, who had a philosophy that all children could learn music and develop their potential. And so my mom put me in violin lessons when I was 4. I learned piano lessons a little bit after that. And then I think in 4th grade, I learned cello for a little bit. And then whenever I was in high school, I learned viola. And then I actually didn't learn bass until I was in college. But I now feel pretty confident in playing all those orchestra instruments.
So when did that love of actually playing music develop into you wanting to do that as a profession? And then when did you realize, okay, maybe my professional life is going to be teaching music?
I've always felt like I understood and appreciated music. Growing up, I really obsessively loved listening to movie soundtracks. And so my big musical dream for a long time was to play music for films. I really loved the way soundtracks added to the cinematography and added to the narrative. The fact that something like music, which is an invisible, intangible concept that can change people's brain chemistry, is really, really amazing to me. I was also really fortunate to have some incredibly awesome music teachers growing up. My music teachers really helped me feel valued, and they believed that I could achieve anything that I set my mind to. There were so many countless times with my private lesson teacher where she would give me a solo to learn, and I couldn't believe that she thought that I could actually learn it. But then sure enough, I would. It's a very powerful feeling to feel confident in yourself and finally be able to do the things that you didn't think were possible. And I want to help students do the same thing. Confidence, for me, is one of the most transferable skills that any musician can gain.
So hearing you talk about film scores and soundtracks, I love that as well. My kind of favorite of all time is Johnny Greenwood's There Will Be Blood. That soundtrack is amazing to me. Do you have a favorite from going back as a kid or even right now, best film scores?
It's so hard to pick because there were so many pivotal moments in film history. There was a project when I was in my music theory class where we had to create a film score using some contemporary processes to do that. And we studied a lot of Bernard Herrmann's music, which he wrote the music for a lot of Alfred Hitchcock films. And so really creating that suspense and using, sound design to create those really intense moments of fear and suspension it's so powerful. It really gives the viewer a physical reaction that gives them goosebumps. It gives them, that feeling of their heart rate growing and getting faster. Like, that's power.
Doug, what about you? Anything off the top of your head that really moves you in terms of a film score?
Absolutely. There's been a ton over the years. I'd say right now I'm listening to the Ted Lasso soundtrack on a loop. Season 1 in particular, Marcus Mumford does some amazing instrumental stuff on that, and the theme song really gets me. But let's stop talking about me, Connor. We have 2 orchestra students joining us today. Let's have you both introduce yourselves, and why don't you tell us a film score or TV score that resonates with you right now?
I'm Melissa, and I think a film score that resonates with me the most is the one from the movie Black Swan, just because I like how challenging it is to think about how to play it.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good one. I haven't seen Black Swan.
Great film. Darren Aronofsky. Very scary.
I'm Caleb, and there's a variety of songs you could pick from scores, but one that I really like is the love theme from Cinema Paradiso by Ennio Morricone. It's a phenomenal piece, and I think I want an opportunity to play it one day because it just sounds so deep and tender. I just love it.
Morricone's a fantastic pick. Caleb, what instrument do you play, and why did you choose it?
I played the violin in 5th grade because my brother Aiden Chan inspired me.
That's awesome. Melissa, how about you? What instrument do you play?
I chose the violin because in 5th grade when we got to see all the instruments, it was the one that had the most appeal to me.
Very cool. I think that's the reason I picked the violin too. It kind of felt right. So that's awesome. So 4 violinists at the table right now. Connor, you are the outlier. So why don't you ask our next question?
So a lot of people don't know that our music programs are voter funded through our levies. They help fund music education, which is not fully funded by the state. So first, thank you voters. And second, for our 2 students, what does this orchestra class mean to you? We'll start with you, Caleb.
I believe orchestra is a great way to start my day off positively because it keeps myself eager to practice after the school day, and it's truly my favorite class. I love it.
That's awesome. Melissa, what about you? What do you enjoy about this class?
I think I enjoy it because it's kind of my safe place where I can kind of go play how I'm feeling and contrast my feelings into the music that I play.
That's so cool. It's such a great thing to have an artistic expression. I'm so glad that we offer that to students.
I am as well. And Shannon, you're working with these middle school students. What are they learning musically in class?
So my goal for all my students is to be able to play anything they want on their instruments exactly the way they hear it in their head. So it's the same thing as a visual artist creating an external representation of what they're envisioning in their mind. So in order for my students to achieve that, it's my job as a teacher to equip them with the tools to bring their ideas to life on their instruments. So I focus a lot on establishing good technique in the first few years of learning their instrument. And I see establishing technique as giving students a toolbox with a bunch of different tools. So for example, this tool is pretty easy to use and it's good for this thing. And this other tool, it's a little trickier, but it's good for this other thing. And what's cool is if you combine these 2 tools together, you can actually create this really cool effect. And from there, once students have an understanding of what is in their toolkit and how to use the tools, they can use their own intuition and creativity to play some really amazing things. For example, yesterday, Caleb showed up and played a little gorgeous bit of the famous violin solo from Schindler's List. I didn't teach him how to do that or how to play it, but because he has a good understanding of how to make his violin sound the way he wants it to sound, he's able to make very creative and intentional artistic decisions in his performances. Melissa is exactly the same way. She takes the pieces that we're learning in class and she adds her own creative touch to it because she has a deeper understanding of how to make her instrument sound exactly the way she wants, exactly the way she hears it in her head. And that only comes from knowing your instrument well and spending a lot of time learning how to make your instrument sound the way you want it.
That's so interesting because you're kind of talking about that as a skill that you're building in students. When I was growing up, people would just say, oh, he has an ear for music, so he can just play whatever he wants to. But it's something that students have to work on.
Yeah, it's definitely something that can be developed. I always say anyone can join orchestra. It's just like anything else. You just have to be willing to keep an open mind and put in the time and the effort to get better at things that are challenging. And I think that's one of the most important things that I can teach a student in orchestra is to persevere through those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine perseverance is a necessity for things like this. And speaking of that, so obviously learning and performing songs is the biggest part of this class, but are there any other skills that maybe translate outside the classroom that you guys are learning in this class? Melissa, we'll start with you.
I think it teaches you how to like work well with other people and like hold yourself accountable for like practicing and like at home. And it like teaches you leadership and like how to lead your section and your group and your peers in the class.
I bet. Caleb, anything you want to add to that?
Orchestra also gives people a really strong sense of discipline and responsibility because practicing at home is up to the musician. It teaches a lot of accountability too. It's also a good opportunity to be a part of something bigger than yourself.
That's awesome. And both of your answers kind of make me think of orchestra as like a team sport almost. You know, each player has to be at their best so then the orchestra can be at their best. Sports also funded by our levy. Thank you, voters. But we're talking about orchestra today. Melissa, if you could have the orchestra play any song, what would it be and why?
I think if we could play any song, I think I would want it to be Swan Lake by Tchaikovsky because it's really challenging and there's solos and each section of the orchestra has like their own bits and parts to it.
Wow, also a classic. I've heard of that one. I was expecting something newer than some pop music. We played pop music. My orchestra teacher would transcribe like the theme to MacGyver, and now I'm dating myself because this was very popular at the time. But things like that, and even Eleanor Rigby, he would come up with a middle school version that we could play, which was super fun. So I really appreciated about him. Shout out to Mr. Tester, who just retired very recently.
I think our top ensemble is going to be performing Eleanor Rigby for our end of year concert. So
oh, fantastic. I can't wait to hear that. Caleb, how about you? If you could have the orchestra play any song.
Like I said earlier, Cinema Paradiso is a great song. Maybe we can perform it. Maybe I can perform it later. But right now, Lion City by Soon Hee Newbold, that's a great song within our reach of skill. So we probably will play that song.
Wow, some eclectic music choices here. I love that. So Shannon, you actually can get the orchestra to play any song. The question is, how do you choose the music, and do you ever throw any popular songs in the mix?
Choosing music is probably one of my favorite parts of this job. It's always really fun to listen to new pieces and to find new pieces, especially looking at who's in the classroom. And I think that that's where it stems from is teachers really have to know their students, and I really have to understand where every single student is at. So when I'm picking a piece, I imagine the students in the ensemble performing it. And I try to find pieces that fit each ensemble since they're all unique. And like all music teachers, I go through every single part for every instrument and I imagine every student in that section performing it. And that helps me know, which parts are they going to struggle with, which parts are they going to do really, really well with. If I have a student that has this gorgeous vibrato in the cello section, I'm going to pick a piece that has an opportunity for that student to show that skill. It's a long process, but it's so rewarding, especially when the students finally master those challenging spots. I try to choose pieces that are going to push and challenge the students, introduce some new concepts, and ultimately find something that the students will enjoy playing and practicing. And we definitely do play popular music. At Cougar Mountain, we've done Lady Gaga's Poker Face. We did that last year. We've done Fireworks from Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. We've done Don't Stop Believing and like the theme song to Scooby-Doo, and we have a lot more coming up. So
I love it. And that just adds a layer of fun to it as well as the students are learning. Before we let you all go, not everybody who plays in band, orchestra, or choir continues as they become adults. Some go on to become podcast hosts for school districts. That would be me. But as we talked about, music is really just a part of life. So Caleb and Melissa, when you're thinking about life after you graduate high school, what role do you see music playing?
If I'm being honest with myself, I do not think I'll be playing my violin as much as I do from middle school to high school, but I'm going to join the military, so either way, I could combine both categories.
And you can absolutely play in the military. They have some amazing bands, so if you do want to pursue that, that is an option for you. What about you, Melissa? Where do you see music taking you in the future?
I think it plays a pretty big role for me because I plan to go to college for education and music to one day be an orchestra teacher.
Oh, inspiring the youth. Way to go.
I'm really proud of my students. I love my job so much.
It really comes across. Thank you all for joining us for this conversation today. You may have inspired other students, other prospective teachers in the future to come and do what you do. So we thank you for your work here, Shannon. Shannon Bolin, Cougar Mountain Middle School Orchestra Director, and Caleb and Melissa, both students in the orchestra. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. Thank you again to the whole crew here at Cougar Mountain Middle School. And we are going to leave you with a snippet of the Cougar Mountain Middle School Orchestra at work.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you again next week.